Hey guys, my name's Randy Hale, and I'm not trying to be a big time YouTuber, but I've been watching some of the videos and talking in the different groups and on the Facebook pages, and one of the things is a lot of guys are getting into this ADV riding, which is great, but not everybody comes from like a military background or has experience camping or traveling and things like that, and they have a lot of questions, and sometimes I think that they're not getting the right answers, or at least all of the right answers. And one thing I wanted to cover today was just a safety, motorcycle safety from this perspective and first aid. You can take a look at this video, and if you find something you like, take it and leave the rest. If you don't like it, just keep scrolling. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps infantry. I got 2 combat tours. I've seen a lot of things. I've traveled a lot, and some of that experience will kick over into my riding and my packing and in the way I view things and the way I view my packing. So I just wanted to share that with you. When it comes to safety and travel, one of the first things I always say is to have good healthcare insurance. Make sure you have good healthcare insurance. Motorcycling is dangerous, and I don't have any right to go out there and create a situation where I put a financial burden on my family just because I want to go out and have some fun doing something. I'll say this, and if you can't afford health insurance, you can't afford a motorcycle. Okay? It's simple, cut and dry. If you have to get a part-time job that's got medical care coverage, or you have to get a part-time job to afford your medical care insurance to go ride your motorcycle, that's fine. Whatever it takes, but have good health care coverage. Because like I said, when things go sideways, which they do at times, it's usually pretty costly. Second thing I want to cover, and this here kind of gets thrown in with it, is I have a Garmin InReach. So let me just start with the fact that I travel alone a lot, and so I carry this so my wife can track where I'm at, and I can also text message her when I don't have cell phone service, and I always have an SOS button, so if I get in trouble, I can always call for help. I bought this thing, it's a $15 a month subscription. It's well worth it, just for safety. Another thing is if I'm riding with other guys and they have a problem, and we need a medevac or we need a rescue, I can hit this and I can get help for them. And I hear online people say, well, I don't carry one because what if you're unconscious, you can't use it anyways. Okay, that's just people that like to try to find fault with things to sound smart. Okay, in the rare instance that you wouldn't be conscious if you were in an accident, does not negate all the positive things that this thing will do for you. Okay, don't listen to people like that because they just don't make sense. Another thing about this that I like is search and rescue insurance, and that's why I went from health insurance right to this. I pay $40 a year for search and rescue insurance. If I need to be medevac, I have insurance to cover that. $40 a year is nothing, okay? And chances are I'll never need it, but if I do, I have it. And for what I pay, it's well worth the peace of mind. We've heard about people, recently needing medevac and how expensive it was, and they don't have insurance and they can't afford to pay for it, and they have to come to the community for help, and that's all great. I'm glad the community is there to help these people, but the thing is, for $40 a year, we can negate that. And the thing is, it's like, well, people say, how good are these insurances? I'll tell you, these aftermarket insurances are much better than you think. We bought our daughter a trip to Scotland. I paid $300 for her travel insurance. She was over there, they were riding aggressively, she got in a wreck with another horse on a racetrack, she broke her ankle all the way through. It paid for the ambulance ride to the hospital, it paid for 2 surgeries, paid for a 4 or 5 day hospital stay, paid for 10 days in an Airbnb where she had to stay with her foot elevated before she could fly. It bought her a $9,000 one-way business class ticket back to the United States so she could keep her foot elevated, and then it paid for all the transportation to the airport and back. I got all of that for $300. It was one of the best $300 I ever spent. Moving on to the next thing when it comes to first aid is, I always tell people, get first aid training. Find someplace in your community where you can get some first aid training. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, just even how to bandage properly, how to wrap an injury properly, things like that. All those things come in handy. And CPR, especially a lot of these guys riding now are getting up there in their 60s and 70s, and people have just heart attacks or whatever, or even if you are in a situation where you're not riding and you need to provide first aid, it's just a good thing to know. So there's nothing wrong with just knowing good basic first aid, regardless. The next thing I'm going to move on to, and this isn't talked about enough, is hydration. Hydration, 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 man. I go on rides and these guys are traveling out there and they got one little bottle of water, next thing they're out of water and they want to stop and get someplace. It's like, that's craziness. I carry a hydration pack, territory like that. I certainly can make it on a motorcycle on a liter of water an hour. So I always say hydration, hydration, hydration. Okay, now getting into first aid kits. This is where there's people want to argue about all this stuff. And there shouldn't be a lot of arguing because there isn't a lot that really needs to go into these. But I will say this one thing is, if you have a first aid kit, it should be well marked, and mine should be red. I don't know why I have this stupid camouflage one, but I'm going to get rid of it and get a red one. It should be well marked and it should be on the outside of your gear. It shouldn't be tucked way down deep in your bag somewhere where nobody else but you know where it is, in some black bag, and nobody knows what it is, on top of not knowing where it is. Now, I was just talking to a guy at one of the coffee meets the other day, and he does all these YouTube videos, and we were talking, he's showing us, why isn't your first aid kit out here and well marked where somebody can find it? See, if I go down and I'm unconscious, people can see or hopefully they will see my first aid kit's available. Another thing too is if I come up on someone and their first aid kit's out, I can also pull it apart and see what's in it. But if it's buried way down deep inside of one of my bags, nobody's going to know where it's at but me. And then it's of no use. So I always say, first thing is, first aid kits should be well marked as first aid kits, and they should be on the outside of your bike, on the outside of your gear where everybody can see them. And they're easy to get to. Another thing too is I can get to this in seconds. It's one of the first things I can grab off my bike, is it just peels off. It's got a Velcro with a couple snaps. I can peel it off and I'm ready to go. Going into the contents of a first aid kit. Look, I'm not real extravagant with this. I'm telling you why, is because I know my limitations on what I can treat myself. But the one thing that I do carry, I carry these in my car. I usually have 2 of them in here, but I got one of each in my car right now, is to carry a tourniquet and pressure dressings. These are 2 things that every motorcyclist should have on them all the time. Motorcycle accidents are extremely traumatic quite often. Loss of multiple limbs, things like that, compound fractures with heavy bleeding, that require tourniquets. And I know that there's somebody out there who's going to say, well, I'll just use my belt and a stick. I'm going to tell you guys from experience, that's never going to happen. If you think that in a traumatic situation like that, where there's a bad accident with everything that's going on, that you're going to take your belt off and wander out in the woods or whatever and find a stick or a screwdriver and make a tourniquet that's effective like that, you've already lost the game, because it's not going to happen. When I was in the Marines, guys used to rubber band these to their buttstocks of their weapons, just so that we'd have them on hand if we needed them. Like if somebody came up on them and they were injured, they could get to their tourniquets real quick. There's nothing better than these Amazon pre-made tourniquets ready to go. You put them on, you tighten them up, you spin the latch, you tighten them till the bleeding stops, okay? And it's all done. Once again, if you think you're going to make one of these out of your belt with a stick, it's not going to happen. And I don't care what people say, they're going to argue it and they're wrong. All my tourniquets have an ink pen with them. I use either rubber band or I just attach it right here. Another great thing about these Amazon ones or these medical ones you can buy online is it says time. I write the time and the date. Well, I haven't had to use one yet, but if I use one, I'm going to write the time and the date right on it. So when the surgeon or the doctor, whoever goes to take these off, and they should only be taken off by a doctor once they're put on, he can see when it was put on. And that's important information. He wants to know how long that tourniquet's been on, because it helps him make decisions on how we're going to treat the limb below the tourniquet. Okay, so I take and put this here. Like I said, I'm just being prepared, because I'm telling you what, when things go sideways, which they always seem to do, they go sideways quick, and there's not a lot of time to improvise. The better prepared I am, the smoother things go, and the better off everybody is. Another thing too I carry is these pressure dressings. I usually carry 2 of them, and I should have some clotting cloth in here, and I don't. I got to add some to it just in case. Is if you get wounds that you don't think requires a tourniquet, but they still are bleeding quite heavy, there's nothing better than these pressure dressings. Put these dressings on and put a lot of pressure on it, and just try to contain it until the ambulance guys get there. Some of these times, especially in the mountains, guys, it can take 20-30 minutes to get an ambulance to you when you're up there. So having tourniquets and being able to control the bleeding is necessary for someone's survival. So just be prepared. And like I say, if you're prepared for it, nothing's ever going to go wrong. That's the rule of thumb. If you're prepared, nothing ever goes wrong. It's when you leave all this stuff at home, that's when something goes sideways. It seems like that works that way for me anyways. Next thing I go into is, I don't carry a lot of stuff. Like the emergency stuff is an ice pack, bandages to wrap it up. If somebody gets a bad ankle break or a bad sprain or something like that, thing is, I got some Motrin, get some Motrin in them, try to help handling the inflammation. Get a cold pack on it to reduce the swelling or try to maintain it as best you can. Wrap it up and then get them to a doctor or get the medical help. Another thing too is I carry chem lights. It's always good in your first aid kit to have these. I've been up in the mountains sometimes. It's so dark up there. There's no street lights. There's a lot of overhead canopy because of the forest. You can't see well. And there's a lot of switchbacks like this and people are driving crazy up there. One thing I do is go up the road and down both ways and throw some chem lights in the road just as a warning. And when people come up on these, they usually always will slow down, or you hope they'll slow down, and it reduces the speed of the traffic coming by you or lets them know that there might be a problem up ahead. So throwing some chem lights in the road. As far as survival goes, I talked about water. I carry an inline filter for my Hydro Pack. If I run out of water or I'm at an emergency and I can't get to water or something like that, I can cut this line and put this in here and I can drink almost anything until I get back to civilization. So this is one thing you don't see a lot, but I carry because I just know how important hydration is. So I always carry a one-way water filter like this. Rubber gloves. I'm not touching any bloody situation without gloves on anymore. You never know, the person could have HIV, they could have a hepatitis, whatever. Doesn't mean I'm not going to help them. I'm just going to do it with gloves on, if that makes any sense. Bandages. Bug spray, it's another one I carry. Bugs are not only annoying, but when you get up towards, if you're like going to BDRs up to the north and the northeast, you really got to watch out for ticks and things like that carry diseases that can stick with you for a while. So it's better to just keep some good bug spray. Keep your pants and your shirt's cuffs tight. Keep this on your face and your neck. Put it on your clothes and try to do everything you can to keep them off from you. That's another thing that I can always carry with me. Like I said, triangle bandage and all this stuff. Another thing, lip balm. You don't know how nice this stuff is when you get some really ripped up lips out there. Especially when you get out west and it gets hot, everything gets dry. I carry this just in case I need it. And then I come back to the rest of my nanny stuff, just some basic Band-Aids, cleansing towels, disinfectant gel, things like that, a pair of scissors. That's pretty much it. The thing is, going back through all this stuff, you don't need to be crazy with these first aid kits. The thing is, remember, this is first aid. It's not something to live by. The most important thing I say, going back to, is carry tourniquets, carry pressure dressings to be able to stop the bleeding, know CPR, how to keep the person breathing, and have a way to contact help. Those are the most important things when it comes to first aid. And if you got that down, the rest of it is gravy. The only other thing I carry, like the hydration, I had this out because I pulled it out, was I carry bear spray also. There's a couple reasons why I carry bear spray. This doesn't really have anything to do with first aid, but it just has to do with my safety and protection. Number one, it's for bears. And number two, I'm always armed. I'm usually always armed if it's legal for me to carry in that state and carry in that area. I'm usually always armed. But when it comes to self-defense or defense of another person, like there's an argument going on, it looks like a fist fight's gonna start, or some guy's smacking his wife and you have to get involved with that, or a road rager confronts you, I'll tell you, there's nothing better than bear spray, honestly. This is what I give to my wife and daughter. I mean, they're not, if you've ever been in a gunfight, you know how hard it is to hit somebody with a pistol under stress. It's really, really hard. It's more likely that it's going to get taken away from them and they're going to get beat to death with it. So the bear spray is really nice because I got 30 foot of fog. You can't miss. Another thing is fog, and you can just chase them down. I tell my wife, you just chase them down with it. But another reason is if you get a confrontation with someone and it looks like it's going to turn violent and you can diffuse it with some bear spray, you've got a lot more wiggle room in court If you bear spray someone than if you shoot them in the face with a 9mm. Okay? Just from a legal standpoint, it's a lot better. You're a lot better off bear spraying someone than you are shooting them. So I always carry this with me. I always carry it where I have easy access for animals. If I run into a bear, 2, if I run into problem people. One other thing I wanted to cover, I forgot about this, is when it goes back to just after the health insurance is dressing for the ride. When I'm out single tracking with my friends and just riding locally and just having some fun, I wear body armor, guys, well protected. Chest plates, back plates, shoulder, elbow plates, just like that. Because, you know, I'm 58 years old now and things break a lot easier than they used to and they take a lot longer to heal. Another thing too is I don't want any serious injuries that's going to put me out of motorcycling forever. I always wear I got a good climb helmet. I always wear, if I'm not wearing this type of gear and we're doing more road and just gravel work traveling, then I wear a proper jacket, proper riding pants with elbow protection, knee protection, skid protection. I really like this Adichie jacket I've got because it's got a zip-in rain jacket, it's got a zip-in thermal, so I can switch those around. I can use the thermal when I'm sleeping to add like an extra layer, so I really like that. Next thing too is proper boots. You know, a lot of ankle injuries out there, broken ankles, twisted ankles, people tipping over, bike falls on their ankle. That's really, really common. We see it all the time on the Facebook pages. People say, oh, I was out and my friend broke his ankle or I hurt my ankle. And a lot of times they're not wearing the proper boots. You know, these touring boots that people wear when they're riding their Honda Goldwings and whatever, the waterproof ones, it's fine for that. But if you're going off-road, get yourself some proper boots. And like I said, these are not the quality of a motocross boot, but they give me a lot of protection and they're still comfortable. And like I said, if they're not comfortable, I'm not going to wear them probably. So I had to make a compromise, but I think these Klim boots do a good job. They're nice and tight around the ankle. They offer me some stiffness, and I think it's just real important to kind of have that kind of stuff. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, man, you can always hit me up on Facebook. You guys see me around there. And if you want to do some riding in your Charleston, hit me up. You know, I'm always willing to go out and get some seat time. But hopefully this was helpful. I know that I covered some things you haven't seen yet. And so hopefully some people will take this into consideration when you go riding, because, you know, safety is important. And like I said, when things go sideways, they go sideways quick. And if you're not prepared, then you're already behind the 8 ball. You know, having this kind of gear, practicing through it in your mind where it's at, how you're going to get to it, and how you're going to treat people all helps. And I guess that's it. I haven't ever made a video before, so I don't know how to end it. I'll say goodbye. Peace out.